Hello and welcome to this video presentation. My name is Paul Brett. I'm a Senior Software Support Analyst supporting the Transformation Extender product from IBM. The topic for today's video is using Microsoft SQL Server on Linux with ITX. Feel free to reach out to me on popular social media channels at Paul Brett IBM. Here is an overview of what this session is about. I will show you a web page that gives you the steps that allow you to obtain and apply the Microsoft SQL Server ODBC driver. The link for this page is in the notes for this video. I will show you how I created my ODBC INI and ODBC inst.ini files to be able to connect to SQL Server. I will then do a practical demonstration by generating a map that uses a DB query function using ODBC and then execute that map on the ITX command server on Linux. While doing this, I will also show you a page that has details of where to obtain and how to apply the Jdbc driver. While generating the map, I will do a second map that uses a get function to use the Jdbc driver, and I will execute that map also on the ITX command server on Linux and retrieve the same table. On screen you will see a page from the Microsoft website that describes how to install the ODBC driver for SQL Server on the Linux platform. I will include this link in the notes for the video. For example, if you are running Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you need to follow the steps that are included in this section of the page. I have already completed these sections on my own Linux box, and I will show you the driver in the next section. In the second tab, I have a link to the page that tells you where to download the Jdbc driver for SQL Server on Linux. Again, I will include this link in the notes for this video. On screen you will see I have an SSH connection to my Linux box, and I will now show you what files are created by the ODBC installation steps in the page that I showed you in the previous section. If we go to the /opt directory, you will note there is a Microsoft subdirectory, within which there is an MS ODBC subdirectory, and within this there are 4 directories that are created by the process. The driver that we're interested in is in a subdirectory lib64. Next we will go to our ITX installation, and within there we have a Unix ODBC subdirectory, and within that we have an etc directory. Here is the location that you will find the ODBC.ini and ODBC inst.ini files. Let's start with the content of the ODBC inst.ini. You will note this section for SQL Server, which has a label ODBC driver 17 for SQL Server, a description, and also a driver. This driver is the file that I showed you in the previous step. This was installed by the ODBC installation steps as directed on the website. Next I will show you the content of the ODBC.ini file. You will note that the ODBC.ini file has a string for my data connection VMSX8TST, and there is a driver label that matches exactly with the driver label that we saw in the ODBC INI file, ODBC driver 17 for SQL Server. The only other item this section needs is the server value, which has the server IP address with a comma and then the port number. This is everything that is required from the ODBC side to connect from an ITX map to SQL Server on Linux. You need to download and install the driver. You need to edit the ODBC inst.ini and the ODBC.ini files. Moving on to the Jdbc adapter, if we go back to our ITX installation, you will note that there is an ext.jar folder. Here is where I have placed the MS SQL.jar file that I downloaded from the link in the Jdbc download page. This is the only step required to get a map working with the Jdbc driver to connect to a SQL source from a map running on Linux. Here we have the ITX 10.1 Design Studio open. I have a project called SQL Server. The project contains nothing but a single generic type tree. So let's go ahead and create a couple of maps. First step is to create an empty map source file. I'm going to call my map test.mms. Now I'm going to create a new map called test_ODBC. This map needs a card. It's going to be an output card and it's going to be called out1. The type tree I'm going to use is the generic type tree, and from that the object I'm going to pick is just text item. I'm going to write the results to a file called output.txt. Okay, now for the rule. We're going to do a DB query in this map, and on the end of the DB query we're going to call the last error message function just in case things go wrong. Okay, the DB query needs two arguments. The first of those two arguments is our select statement. Select star from test1, nice and simple. The second argument is our connection string. So we're going to go with -db type ODBC -connect BMS8XTST is the entry that we had in our ODBC.ini file. Next is the username and password. And finally I'm going to add on adapter tracing. Okay, that's this map ready. This is the ODBC map. Let's create a new map, test_Jdbc. This map is also going to require an output card. I'm going to call it out1. The type tree is again generic. The object I'm going to use is again text item, and the file I'm going to write is output.txt. The rule here is instead of a DB query we're going to do a get. I'm going to paste on the last error message again just in case. The get command has two arguments as well. The first argument is the adapter, which in this case is Jdbc, and then the second argument is the Jdbc connection string, which also includes the query that we're going to make. So let's start with -URL. I'm going to use a -user function again, -password. -as has to be included and be a 0, -qty has to be included and be a star, -lsn with a 0. Let's turn on adapter tracing, and finally we'll do our query itself, which is going to be select star from test1. And that's our rule completed for the Jdbc adapter. So let's save and build all maps and then transfer them to the Linux box ready for execution. Back on my SSH session now, and I've transferred the maps to my Linux box. I did correct a couple of mistakes I've made. In the ODBC map there is no verbose option for adapter tracing, so I just changed that to -t, and on the Jdbc I made a small mistake in the password, which I corrected. So here we can see I have both my maps. I'm going to execute the ODBC one first. And that has completed successfully. If we'll have a quick look at the content of the output file, you will note that it's got the content of my test1 table, And the trace was written as well, so we'll have a quick look at that. Not much to show in there, as it was all very successful, everything looking good. Okay, let's remove the output file for now, and now we will execute the JDBC version. The JDBC map has finished. You will note that there's a warning in the middle of my transaction telling me that I need to use a more secure TLS version, but we can ignore that because it is just a warning for now. Let's have a look at the content of output again. We have the output of my table, which is great. Have a look what other files we have. We've got the M4 JDBC file, which we shall have a quick look at now. There we go, just a little summary of how it connected and what it found. Rows fetched 7. So there we have it, a short summary of how to download and apply the ODBC and JDBC drivers for SQL Server on the Linux platform, how to write a quick couple of maps to retrieve data from a simple table, one using the ODBC adapter, one using the Jdbc adapter. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my video presentation today. If you found the content interesting and informative, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, as I release content such as this on a regular basis. Feel free to reach out to me on popular social media channels at Paul Brett IBM. Thank you.